Welcome back to The Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price. Already wrapping up another show, but we have a great guest to do it with, Robert Mazur. He's been on the program before. Before we get started on tonight's topic, though, Robert, why don't you kind of give us a little bit of information about yourself and your background?
Sure. I was a federal agent for 27 years, and most of that time I worked on international money laundering cases, 5 years of which I worked long-term undercover. So I have quite a bit of experience in setting up false identities that are used for long periods of time and were used to actually infiltrate the hierarchy of the Medellin cartel and some of the international banks that were supporting them. I wrote a book about that experience called The Infiltrator, and that gives you insight into how that world operates as well as what the impact might be on someone to live a double life for 5 years.
Yep, that's right. And we had you on the program to talk about The Infiltrator. Great book, fantastic book, and people should check that out. Let's talk a little bit about the subject at hand, which is the problem of tax fraud and how rampant that is. Tell us a little bit about your experience in that area.
Well, I was originally, when I got into law enforcement, I was a special agent with the Criminal Investigation Division of IRS. So I then went on to other agencies, but I certainly stayed in contact with and continued to train agents that work within the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, and I stay on top of financial affairs because I'm an expert in white-collar crime and money laundering in civil and criminal cases. So, but what I can tell you is that the system is broken, and it's highly, highly vulnerable. Right now, I guess I would consider the vulnerabilities of our tax system similar to taking a brand new Mercedes, putting it into a high crime area, leaving the keys in it with the windows down and the engine running, and wondering why did someone steal it. The problem that we face is that our tax system has now been set up with an aspect called the earned income credit. This enables people who have low income, multiple children, are employed to apply for a tax refund with the benefit of earned income credit. So you can make maybe $11,000, $12,000 a year, pay absolutely no taxes, apply for the earned income credit, and if you qualify under the criteria, you can get back as much as $5,600. So what a large number of organized criminal organization groups have done, and I've seen it firsthand in Tampa just in the last several months, a huge $100 million tax fraud was uncovered, not by the IRS, but by the local law enforcement agencies with the help of the Postal Service and the Secret Service. But that's a separate story. In this regard, what individuals will do is they will create a false tax return showing false income, let's say as a hairdresser or somebody who does nails or some other type of Schedule C business. They'll claim income that they never got. They'll claim their dependents, and they'll apply for the earned income credit. And they'll do that using systems like TurboTax and other online products. Unfortunately, because the IRS has decided to become more customer-friendly, they at one point had assured e-filers, electronic filers, that they would send them a refund within 48 hours. Now it's been moved to 7 to 10 days with a hope that they would double-check to make sure that these refund requests are legitimate. But under the TurboTax system, or any online system, you can have the refund sent to a debit card. And these green dot TurboTax credit cards have been used quite a bit by organized criminal groups. What happens is they'll get an email or a tweet that tells them that the money has arrived within a few days after they've electronically filed. The money comes in, no taxes were ever paid. They get the $5,600, and they do this to the tune of hundreds upon hundreds of filings by working with groups that steal identities. And the sad thing is that taxpayers who have fallen victim to this, who then find out when they try to file their real tax return that someone else has used their identity, can't even get the information from the IRS about the false return filed on their identity because the IRS considers that to be taxpayer information that isn't lawfully able to be shared with the person who's already said that they didn't file that information.
Talking to Robert Mazur. Robert, real quickly, want to make sure we keep moving because I really want to make sure we walk away with a takeaway from today's conversation. What kind of reform? What are some of the basic elements of reform necessary to make this more sensible?
Well, what we need to do is we need to demand that the IRS establish a verifiable method through which they confirm the true and accurate identity of individuals who do e-filing. To return it around in 48 hours or even in 7 days and expect the system to truly catch fraudsters who are doing this in massive numbers is just ludicrous. It's unfortunate. Some people really do desperately need that refund, but unfortunately, because of the tremendous abuses and because of the fact that this is such a loss for the government in its capital, we need to slow the system down until we actually get verifiable information in there. We also need to apply some common sense within the IRS when they start interpreting taxpayer information. I can tell you the story that happened in Tampa. The local police departments found many individuals involved in identity theft and even drug rings that had massive numbers of these green dot e-cards that were debit cards that were in many different names. They recognized rather quickly that this was somewhat of a tax scam. They tried to get together with the IRS. The IRS said, well, you can give us the information, but we can't work with you. We can't share this information with you because it's taxpayer information and it needs to be protected. Meanwhile, they didn't act on it. And continually, literally, more than $100 million in refunds were cut off by the Postal Service, who worked with the Secret Service and the local law enforcement, while the IRS stood idly by and didn't do anything on it. We need to get some oversight in there and help the IRS to understand that they can make investigative disclosures when it's necessary for them to be able to act on a matter. I was an IRS agent. I know what taxpayer information is, and it's unlawful to share it.
I'm going to have to wrap up here in just a minute. And it sounds like a lot of time they're spending a lot of energy on things like audits of middle-income families when they should be doing some pretty serious criminal investigation, though.
You're absolutely right. And the easiest way to deal with this is to get with the local law enforcement agencies. They've got the people who can get into these identity theft rings, find who's organizing these massive conspiracies, and then go after them. There was a case just within the last several weeks.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get you back on to talk about that other case. Okay. Literally got seconds left. Robert Mazur is his name. You can learn more about him at the-infiltrator.com. The-infiltrator.com. And I encourage you to do just that. Thanks so much for being with us.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
All right. I want to wish you out there a great rest of your evening right here on this station.